What's poppin', Pokepeep? Today we got ourselves a spicy one, as per usual though, of course, but today's video is a little bit different. We're not doing an opening, we're not doing a grade reveal. What we're doing is packaging our orders for PSA. This is something that I've been requested to do about 1,000,000 times, and something that I've kind of kicked the can down the road and procrastinated. However, today we're doing it. I believe I have like a 68% gem rate on hitting 10s at PSA, which is pretty fair. I think it's decent. More so, a lot of the cards that I do send in with the aspect of gambling it. Like, oh, I know this will probably be a 9, but maybe the grader's in a good mood that day, I'm gonna get a 10. Like, I know what is gonna get a 10 versus what's not gonna, and then some cards I just chance it and see if they're gonna give me a 10 on it, because that'd be really cool. But if not, then oh well. But today I'm gonna teach you guys some things that you need to look out for when grading your cards, how you're gonna know if it's gonna get a 10 before even sending it in. There's a lot of little tools and tips and tricks that's out there that most people just don't know about, and maybe I could be able to provide some insight to you guys. So today we got ourselves a big old pile of cards right here. I believe this is over 30 cards. These are all potentially gradable cards that at a glance I'm like, yeah, that looks semi-decent, but like right now we're gonna get in the nit and gritty of what is gonna make these actual gradable cards and worth sending in. So first things first, I'm basically gonna just take a card. For example, we're just gonna go ahead and take a look at it. Off rip, you guys could tell whether or not like it's fairly centered or not. Like, this card looks like it almost has perfect centering. It's not crooked also, because a lot of people don't understand that a card can be a little bit crooked and the print can be diagonal a little bit, but you don't really notice it. And so one way to tell is that in the bottom right, if the thickness is thicker than like the top right or something like that. Another thing to look for is print lines. Usually you want it to like hit the light just right. Most of the time with these kind of illustration rares, when it's got a bunch of different texture and stuff like that, it almost never has print lines. It's usually when it's like one solid color. For some reason, there'll be a lot of print lines on a card. Most print lines are pretty uncommon with modern cards though. It's not really something to worry about as much. Like, this card has 0 print lines. Next thing to look for is obviously whitening. These are the obvious things here. One way to check for whitening is get something that's just black. Hold up your card to that black item. You can be able to see it better if there's white in the background. So this also is like a tip and a trick, by the way, for people that sell cards online on eBay or on their websites and stuff. Like me personally with PokeSpirit, I use a black backdrop for my cards when I take pictures of them, because the fact that I don't want people to not know what they're buying. Like, I'm not sitting here trying to hide whitening, but a lot of people do. So if you're buying a card that has a white background, it's likely that they're trying to hide that there's actually whitening on the card. So like this corner, flawless. This corner, pretty flawless. This corner, we got ourselves something. And let me show you with a magnifying glass. This is just a nifty little magnifying glass that came with a centering tool, which I'll talk about later. Right here, we do have what I call a micro white dot. Very, very tiny. This one, like this card, I'd be pretty confident will still get a 10 with that kind of a white dot, because at a distance you don't see it. And this is kind of one thing that PSA is very big on, is at a distance or just like holding the card, do you see any like imperfections or flaws or anything like that? As for the last corner, pretty much flawless. It kind of has like it's even smaller white dot than the previous one. So in reality, could this get a 9? Possibly. Very unlikely though, because the card has really nice centering. It has really good back centering. Majority of the corners are good. There's no like rough edges or anything. Now we're going to get into the next phase of checking on a card, which is going to be busting out our phone and checking out some handy dandy apps. So right here is a centering tool app, which then you could take a picture of your card. It also has like these scales on it, left, right, top, bottom, to where it's like you're able to make sure that you have a very centered picture when taking it. Personally, what I like to do though, if you have an iPhone specifically though, I want to clarify, because obviously if you have Android, I have no idea. I have an iPhone. However, I like to turn on grid and level for my actual camera. Then I'll bust out my actual camera. I'll zoom it into about 2 times. Then I'll take a picture of the card itself, because now we have like a scale that's like measuring out how balanced I am. And I think the Apple one's just a little bit more accurate. So then what I would do is I'll take a picture of my card. Then I'll take that card, and as you can see, like left, right, I'm a little bit off. But now what I could do is obviously adjust it, which you cannot do in the app. So then now I'm going to basically zoom in. I'm going to be able to do some micro adjustments to make sure that the card is pretty flat and pretty level. And then there we go. We got our picture of our card. But now this is the way that the centering tool works. When you zoom in, you're able to adjust these lines now to the very edge of the card. Now, if I had to guess with this card, it's probably a near 50-50. It's probably more like a 51-49 or something. And you basically just want to adjust it all the way to the edge of the card and to the edge of the artwork where the border is. I'm a professional, guys, don't worry. There we go. So we got the borders all set up onto the edge of the card now and to the edge of the artwork itself. At the top left, it says left right centering 50 to 49. Like I said, I think it's probably almost a 50-50. Very close also on top bottom. Just by eyeballing this card, having years of experience, I could tell that this card was almost a 50-50. But using this app, it gives you a really good idea now of what the actual centering is going to be. Now, there's not just apps, there's also actual physical tools that you guys can use. But with the physical tools, I'm not too confident in them. I feel like their lines and the numbers and like it's just kind of confusing as hell. But some people are really good with it, and you might be better with those than you are with the app and being able to take pictures and everything. However, I will say the physical tool, although I lost it, I can't find it. It did come with this magnifying glass, which I love using this thing. This thing is handy when it comes to checking out the edges of cards, dents, dings, and such, because that is the other thing to look for, is like maybe the surface of your card in manufacturing might have a problem where there's like an actual divot in the card, like a dent. Like this card, I'm pretty confident would get a 10, but maybe I don't see something like there might be a little dent in the card, something that only a magnifying glass could detect. However, that's what they do when they grade your card. They get in that thing underneath the magnifying glass and they scanning it. Also, depending on the grader, because for example, if you're going with tag, it's AI grading. So a computer is doing the work for you, which is even harsher, of course. And that's the other thing that I was going to mention, is that depending on the card itself, I think is also what dictates what grader I send my cards to. If I got a card that is unbelievably flawless, it's got to go to Beckett. If I got a card that's absolutely near flawless, then I could send it to tag. If I got a card that's just pretty damn solid, there's no bad wear or tear or anything on it, it's just going to go to PSA. PSA pretty much is the gold standard right now. I think tag is catching up pretty fast. Unironically, a lot of people say that it's a shill company. However, I do think tag is a really solid option for grading cards. Not to mention the slabs are just sexy as hell. Not sponsored by any grading services, want to clarify. Would love to be, so hey, hit me up. Now, I also want to clarify that pretty much every grader will always make you send in cards in card savers. Do not send your cards in a freaking top loader. In these, this is a no-go. This is like you're just storing your card in your closet. That's okay. Top loaders are great for that. But in shipping, cards will fly out of this. Like for example, let me just toss a random card into this top loader. It just slides in, but then like in shipping, it'll obviously just get banged around, and then the card's like doing this. And then after getting moved around in a box or inside of a shipping container, this is what it does. It just falls right out. So never ship your cards in top loaders. People sometimes put masking tape over the top. I'm not a fan of that personally, because although it leaves no residue, it's still rubbing up against it and it still ruins the quality of the card. I will forever and always ship in a card saver. Card savers are 100% the safest method for shipping cards. They don't fall out of it. It's like a vacuum sealed plastic container basically. Storage wise though, top loaders are great. I will say that. Next up for the process in which I check all my cards before sending them in is of course the value. I don't want to spend nearly $20 getting my card graded just to find out that in a 10 it's worth 30. It makes no sense to do that kind of investment. I'm a fan of just slabs in general though. I will clarify that. There's some cards that I'll get graded that I know will come back a 5 just because it's a part of my collection and I enjoy the card. For this, I use an app called Price Charting. Price Charting is how I get pretty much all the prices for my videos. Also, my editors will always pull prices from Price Charting. They'll always toss them up on the screen. They're fairly accurate. They're always pulling from eBay data and also TCG Player and just creating an average. But basically the way this works, you just scan the actual card itself. It will detect that this is a card. You take a picture of it, then it'll pop up all the different variations of that card, whether it be Japanese white flare, regular white flare, or alternate cards that maybe it misscanned it. Then it'll tell you the ungraded value, the PSA value, the black label value from Beckett, and so on and so on. It'll go all the way down to other grades. So like this card in a 10, $60. Now, if I'm spending $20 getting it graded, and if it's a card that I want to keep, like that's not a bad idea, but also might not be worth it. If it's a card I want to sell, if I'm very confident that it's going to be a 10, then sure, I'll send it in. If it's a card that I'm just intending of not keeping and I'm just going to sell it, because I do sell some cards to then pay for the whole grading cost. So I'll send in like maybe 5 or 4 extra cards that I'm not going to keep, but with the intention of like someone else wants to collect it, sure, they can have it now. But that's pretty much the majority of my process of how I go through my cards before sending them in to get graded. So I'm basically just going to do that with all my cards now. Every single card that's in this pile to decide whether or not it's worth sending in. Yeah, we're going to rip through this real quick. I'm basically going to do the exact same process all the way through. One thing I will add before I get to ripping through all of these is sometimes there'll be a card that will have a little bit of gunk on it or like a little scuff or something like that. You could use like a Q-tip, but this is like what you would use to clean a lens for a camera. It's very soft, very nice material, very plush. You don't got to worry about it scuffing up your card. You'll be quite all right. But basically you could just use it to wipe the card. Just gently wipe the card. Because sometimes fingerprints will also knock your card down a grade. So depending on the finish of the card, so like this card, for example, it's a very shiny black, like I don't even know how to describe this, but pretty much in Sword and Shield specifically, they did a lot of these. And when it sits in a sleeve for too long, it actually like liquefies and turns into goop. And so this definitely would hold fingerprints, this kind of a card. So I'd be cautious, and I'd probably just give it a little wipe down real quick just in case before sending it in. Also, if I take a card completely out of the sleeve and I put it back in the same sleeve, usually I don't do that. I'll just put it in a new sleeve to keep it fresh also. A little overkill doing that. Go through sleeves pretty fast doing it also. However, YOLO, we ball. But now I'm gonna rip through all these cards that I think are potentially good to send in. I'm gonna hit them with the measurements and then we'll come back to it. Okay, now I've created two separate piles, and the way this is gonna go is these are cards that I am sending in to get graded. Specifically this video, I'm gonna be sending in these piles to PSA. However, this I will not be sending in because these cards, either A, the value doesn't really make sense, like maybe it's like a $30 card in a 10 or something like that, or B, for example, like this card, although I love this Charizard, damn it, I love getting this Charizard graded. Centering is very good on it. It was like a 48-52 on left right, so it's well within the margin. However, this card does have a decent bit of whitening on this corner, and I don't want to risk it. So instead, what I could do is potentially try to repair it. Usually whitening on corners you can't really repair though, and it's not really worth the risk because you'll probably just damage the card. However, if there's like raised edges, which is another thing to look out for, raised edges are very fixable and very easy to fix at that, which I have a whole video talking about repairing cards and such things as that, so check that one out. I'll probably have it linked in the description for you guys. But these cards I will not be sending in, and I pulled it out of the pile. So now the potential cards are now pretty much all just cards that either A, I just want to get graded, or B, they're cards that are just gonna for sure I think get a 10. And so now we're gonna see when these come back, which by the way, a little sneak peek at the next grade reveal, guys. We got some bangers up in here. We got like Prismatic Evolutions SIR. We got that Dark Blastoise, Shibuya Pikachu. We got some bangers in here. So now begins the next phase though. Oh, how do you send in your cards? How do you get the paperwork? How do you get all that done? Well, I have you know, it's fairly easy. Now we pull out the same ugly little fish that we got, and he is our example as per usual. Personally, like I said, I'll be sending into PSA. So on the PSA app specifically, you're able to take pictures of your card, and it makes it so much easier because on the website you have to like type in like the card, the set. It's kind of confusing and a pain in the ass to do. So on their app though, you're able to just literally take pictures of the card front and back. It'll scan it, and then it'll be like, oh my gosh, I know what card that is. Easy peasy. Generally it can be a little bit tricky when it's in the card saver, but if you make it a very stable, clear picture, you won't have any sort of real issue with it. So for example, I'm gonna click on this card, bam, easy. There we go, easy peasy. Then all you have to do is click grade, then it'll add it to the cart, and there you go. It's so much easier using the app. On other websites though, the process is a little bit different. It's a little tricky actually. Pretty much like every website is just a little bit different. Sometimes you have to do the whole like typing in the year, the set, the Pokemon. Others have a really good detection system. I think tags is pretty decent. When you're typing it in, it'll just auto detect the card when you type in the Pokemon and then the number from the set number, that is. And now after you get all those cards submitted onto the app, then you get a bunch of paperwork. Paperwork sucks. I hate the paperwork. However, it's real easy to do because the paperwork's pretty much just exclusively for just packaging. That's all it is. So for packaging the cards, what I do is I have some card protectors. Now these are Pokespirit card protectors. These are mine, by the way. Like Pokespirit, my website, I sell Pokemon. I buy a wholesale. I would love to get distribution. Also, if you guys want to sell your collection, also you can sell it to Pokespirit. You guys are trying to cash out your Pokemon. However, what I do is I basically set down all my cards, then I set down another one right there, and then I sandwich them with some rubber bands. Typically, this is like pretty much the standard of how a lot of people send in their cards. PSA is fully used to this being just a normal way of receiving cards. So now these cards are in a card protector sandwiched, and these are super sturdy. You're obviously not going to have to worry about your cards getting crunched or anything like that. And then not to mention, this isn't just the only layer of protection. I'm going to toss this directly in the box now. And we got to bubble wrap that bad boy. Pretty much the goal is that I'm just going to roll this bad boy up about 1,000,000 times until he's fully protected and doesn't have as much wiggle room in the box. So I'll roll it up. I'll also add like a bunch of padding and extra paper in here to be able to fill it in, fold it up, slap a label on it, and then we're sending it out. Then you pretty much just wait, and that's it. The long journey of getting a card graded after that. And that pretty much just sums up the whole process of getting a card graded. People have asked me many of times because I've done lots of videos on getting cards graded. A lot of people aren't very familiar with it, or they might be new to it. However, guys, let me know down in the comments if there's something else that you guys want to know about grading. Regardless though, that's gonna be it for this video, guys. If you guys enjoyed it, smash that like button to let me know, hit subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next one.